Coach?
Yeah, starting practice at 11 here today. For us, we're scheduled, our scrimmages are on these Wednesdays, but kind of get the most out of what we're doing. These Saturday practices are huge because we got a day off on Sunday, so we put them through a pretty good physical today. Today we'll work through some scenarios we haven't been through. We'll work overtime at the end of practice. We'll work an end of game. We'll have a full padded practice. We'll work in a line eye drill and do some fundamentals that we don't normally get in during the course of the regular practice. So overall, we've been pretty good. We have a couple guys that will get back today from injury. Expect a lot more next week, and then I think going into even James Kreutz, I believe, is going to be cleared full go for that last week leading into the home opener. So the only guy that would probably be out would obviously be Cole Rusk, who has had a season ending in Mason Moragan, but other than that, we should be good to go at this point.
We've heard about like this mayhem belt, the emphasis on turnovers. I guess, how does that help kind of ignite a defensive room with maybe that competition in camp?
I think anything over the last 5-10 years, everybody's coming up with something to emotionally tie their guys in, and one of the things I think Aaron and the defense staff really does well is connect with their players, right, and try to get the most out of them. They definitely wear the belt with pride, and there's a lot goes into it, not just the turnover, but doing things a certain way and creating havoc. So I really like the way our defensive guys have fundamentally changed just some things that they've done in the spring and then carried forward to this fall about the way we play defense, how we attack the football, how we leverage the game, and also the the negative sides of things. If we don't do them well, the counter effect.
You mentioned that move Demetrius Jones and JoJo Hayden at outside linebacker just to add to that position. What did you see in those two that you thought that would be?
Well, two things, both of them different. JoJo actually played outside linebacker at East St. Louis, and when I offered him, I was literally in high school that day. I was when they were visiting with Sunk, and he was on our radar a little bit, but hadn't done a full film evaluation, but saw him that day, saw him moved around, listened to what Sunk had to say. I made an offer on the spot. I thought he could play outside backer. When we got here, we were a little thin at the inside backer, so we started off there, which was a little bit of a change, and I knew when we transitioned him, I thought it would come back to him really quickly, and it did. Those first couple days were very impressive. Unfortunately, he had a shoulder injury. Now he'll be back. I believe he'll be out there Monday of next week, but his progress has been really quick. And then Demetrius Didi had actually done it early in his high school career, and then just watching him here, when we originally signed Joe Barna, we recruited him kind of as a defensive end and flipped him to outside backer, and we recruited Mason Moragan also as a defensive lineman that we converted outside backer. Sometimes kids don't play that in the scheme they come from, but you can get around them, see the physicality. I think Demetrius, for two things, when I saw him do one-on-ones, just his twitchiness, his ability to go vertical and do some things was pretty impressive, and then his ability to change direction in some of the summer drills that I saw was what was a catalyst to get into where we are.
Brett, what's Ryan Mead's role on not only this football team, but in that inside linebacker room?
He's really run with the ones and on our defense. In the past, he's kind of been a hybrid guy between inside, outside. He did a little bit on line scrimmage. I think last spring, when with a change to Archie, I think he really captivated Archie's thought process, but also defensively, we're trying to get our best players on the field. The things that he did special teams wise, I think were kind of contagious and carried him into the defensive meeting room. He plays incredibly smart. He's really, really aware. He has a high football IQ. And then I know he's taking a lot of pride. This is his last year. I had a senior meeting the other day, and I gave him and Zeke a little bit of grief. They were in there for their third senior meeting, I think, in their careers. But I think in this program, you'll see guys. I put on some video this morning and showed guys that were, from drills 3 years ago in the spring, and several guys now in this building, right, are some of our better players. But also there was one clip where it was Owen Carney going against Vidarian Lowe with Chase Brown as a running back, and Doug Kramer was snapping the ball. Those four guys are all now in the NFL, and I think it just shows the fundamentals. We always talk about fundamentals are the key to good football plays, and bad fundamentals are usually the result of bad football plays. I think that part carries forward with our guys, and it's a good way to kind of live it and see it.
But that, go ahead, Bob.
You've got all your own stuff going on, but have you been able to keep in contact with some of the guys out in the league now in the NFL?
Yeah, I think the greatest teacher to our kids is NFL guys, right? So just a simple thing, somebody sent a photo. I got a photo that was all of our Washington guys they were going with the Jets, right, and Tony Adams. So I saw that photo. I just sent it on to our crew. We got a text chain with Pat Pearson and Brett Moore, and I said, is this going to be a graphic, right? And they're like, absolutely. So that turned into that. I went back and forth with Johnny last night because I saw he wasn't dressed in that video. I just said, hey, how you doing? Where's it at? Isaiah Williams, I think about a month ago, he sent me a picture. I might have shared it with him and Frank Ragnow, which is one of my former players in the past, in a cool tub recovery together, right? So I kind of just shot that back at those two and kind of had some fun with that. And then I think he had 5 catches the other night, 5 targets, 5 catches. So I actually showed those clips to our guys this morning because it was a wet weather game, right? And he had a quote that basically said, we didn't have any bad weather during fall camp, but I go back to and I said, hey, not only do practice have its payoff for you here, they also pay off in the future, right? So, anything we can teach from, learn from, those guys walk the walk with those guys, right? I know our guys, some of these guys are literally in daily contact with Spoon, right? So I think anything that shows he's not only just a good player, a high draft pick, he might be one of the better players in the league, right? So I think any of that stuff does wonders for us.
Obviously, you guys added Terrence Brooks in the secondary, but there's a lot of guys, it sounds like, kind of vying for a spot in that cornerback room. Like, what do you like about how that competition is shaping up?
Well, no doubt, obviously, Xavier Scott is a guy that's, played a lot of football for us to have in that room, his maturity, his presence. But, yeah, I've been very impressed with a couple of our transfers, especially Torrey Cox. He's a guy that I think a year ago at the beginning of summer, we were aware of him, didn't know how it was going to play out, got him on campus, really liked his demeanor, his maturity. And he's been very impressive out here. Caleb Patterson is back with us, started practicing yesterday. He had been out with the concussion protocol, and he by far is playing his best football. Obviously, T. Brooks, who you mentioned. Then the other guy, Jaheim Clark. Jaheim is, now in his second year of playing and kind of understands it. He's a long change of direction athlete that has been very impressive for us in his development in the first really 10 practices here.
You brought Caleb Patterson in last year, liking what he could be. How much did just a year being here maybe change things for him?
I think, for what I've learned, a lot of times those junior college guys that literally became, JUCO guys right out of high school, right? That's all they kind of know. They're playing against really good players, but they've never been in this environment. I think him, Capka Jones, to a certain amount, Rio Sanders, and Caleb from a year ago, some of these guys, when they first come in, all of a sudden it's just different, right? The detail of their training, the way their accountability, we make them weigh in 3 times a day, we hydration test them, all of that can just be a cumulative, holy cow, this is different, right? And it takes a while to get their feet settled. I thought Caleb Patterson, at the end of last year, we started putting him as a guy that defends their flyers on punt, and he was literally holding up some of the best coverage guys that I thought in our league. And I'm like, man, that's the same drill, right, that you're going to have to do as a corner. And I really became impressed with him. He's got a little confidence, and yeah, his enthusiasm, his energy, just his confidence is really high.
I know you mentioned Josh Kurtz is limited right now.
Yeah.
I would assume Kevin and TJ are kind of stepping into a bigger role.
Yeah.
How do they look in that role?
Kevin, TJ, actually TJ has a soft tissue, so he won't be going today, but he'll be back Monday. But, TJ really probably had his best practice on Wednesday in the scrimmage element. I thought he really has continued to go forward. Kevin has continued. He'd been kind of splitting time between center and guard. Now with Josh out, like I said, it's kind of a little blessing for this next 10-day window. We'll really rep Kevin and TJ, but also Brandon Henderson is a guy that's played in there and repped in there. So we're able to get him kind of going in that regard as well. So I think one of the blessings is just to build a little bit of depth in the position we needed.
Is there a position Brandon Henderson doesn't play?
He plays all 5. Literally, I remember as one of his first springs, he played in the first or second week he's here, he played all 5 spots in one practice, right? And just a really good testament. Here's 3 things B. Henderson. He's a big kid that runs, and he's very athletic. He's super intelligent, got a really good football IQ, and he takes ownership in things, right? Like when we literally grabbed him the night before and said, hey, tomorrow we'd like you to do some stuff at center, and his performance that day in practice was off the charts, right? And just a great testament to who he is and what he can become.